And welcome to Imagination Fun Time. I am your host, Brandon Devine. Oh my goodness, how are you folks? It is Christmas season. Oh my god, it's Christmas season. And everyone is so happy except for your bank accounts. I hope you're all doing good. What is today? Today is Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. It is currently 9:24 in the AM. I woke up about an hour ago, and today is payday for me. Isn't it nice when your bosses pay you? Isn't it nice, when you still have a job? Maybe some of you listening, you don't have a job. Maybe some of you are rich, successful billionaires, and if so, please hit me up. I need help, please. But it's payday. I get paid for the little bit of work I do at the restaurant. Not much. Do a little bit, just enough to get by. But the real joy of my life is sitting here talking to you people, talking to my fans, talking to people who want to learn about movies. And normally when I try to teach people about movies, they just walk away from me. But the best part about podcasts is I can't see any of you. So you might be walking away, you might not, but I hope you're staying because I do appreciate you guys. This is my 21st episode. I'm slowly getting up there. I'm slowly trugging along with this podcast game. So let's get into it. Let's just, let's see what's going on in some news today. What's going on in the news in the world of entertainment and movies, according to this? Oh, yeah. IMDb. What's the first thing on IMDb? The trailer for GTA 6. Oh my god, that was actually really sick. That game looks fucking insane, bro. Insane. Okay. The top news on IMDb as of Tuesday, December 5th, 2023, at now 9:26 a.m. is Barbie gets streaming release date on Max. Oh boy, that's gonna be fun. Oh, it's gonna hit Max on December 5th, December 15th. Sweet. That's gonna be. I saw Barbie over the summer. There are many things in that movie I laughed at and was, the guy part of me was like, shut the fuck up. Overall, fucking great movie. Overall, a really great, fun movie. Let's see. Kim Kardashian to star in Ryan Murphy legal drama, expanding her acting career. That is just so depressing that we're just going to skip right past that. Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man will not return, says Kevin Feige, would never magically undo his death. I mean, they say that now until they actually do it, but I hope so. To me, the MCU, I've had a couple good experiences with the MCU since Endgame. Loki season 1, Spider-Man Far From Home, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. But other than that, dude, the MCU just really needs to stop. Really do. Global box office. Ranbir Kapoor's Animal is worldwide top film, ahead of Napoleon. Ooh, a Bollywood movie is leading the world box office. Good for them. That's awesome. I really like that. I still have never seen a Bollywood movie. But one day, I probably won't. No, I'm kidding. I will one day. Beyonce's Renaissance tops the box office with $21 million debut. Not going to say anything about the Beehive because the Beehive will sting me and kill me. So, good on them. Okay, people. Let's see. I'm excited for this episode. This episode is about a movie that means a lot to me. That is one of my personal childhood favorites. Just earlier I mentioned Marvel, and Marvel is currently owned by this little mom and pop shop called Disney. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Disney. You ever heard of Disney? Little mouse ears. When I was throughout the history of Disney, some of their biggest, if not their most some of their most iconic pieces of work have been the filmography of the Walt Disney Feature Animation Studios. And this filmography goes all the way back to the very beginning of the studios. It goes back to the 1920s. It goes back to everything. This is where it all came out of. Walt Disney really wanted to make feature films. It was one of the big goals when he started the company. And the first feature film that they started with is still to this day one of the most legendary animated films of all time, the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That is right, I said dwarfs. People in modern day Disney don't like that because now they're putting, regular 6'5", basketball players as dwarves. But hey, that's called inclusion and diversity. But Disney feature animated films have always been like some of the greatest movies of all fucking time, including the decade when I was born, 90s, the Disney Renaissance, with truly some of its most iconic works, which I will get back into later. But part of this list was a little movie from 2001 called Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Atlantis: The Lost Empire was released in 2001. It's directed by Gary Truesdale and Kirk Wise. Screenplay by Tab Murphy. The story by Kirk Wise, Gary Truesdale, Joss Whedon, I don't know why, Bryce Zabel, Jackie Zabel, and Tab Murphy. Produced by Don Hanan, and starring Michael J. Fox, Cree Summer, James Garner, and Leonard Nimoy. This movie really, I'm just going to start off by saying it bummed me out so much that this movie is still not over as the most popular Disney movie of all time, because in my opinion it should be. It is. Let me just get into the synopsis of this movie for you. The movie opens up with a beautiful explosion over the ocean, and all of a sudden several flying vehicles come speeding towards the camera, being chased by what is now a giant tsunami wave. And we soon see these vehicles are heading back to the city of Atlantis, which is now under threat of flooding due to this giant tsunami wave due to an explosion caused by something that they did. So we see the people of Atlantis in a panic. A giant tsunami is crashing down on them and about to kill them all. We see a 4-year-old Princess Kida being evacuated by her mom and her dad, the king and queen of Atlantis. Then all of a sudden, Kida's mom suddenly looks up and is captured in this beautiful turquoise light of energy, and she is lifted to the sky, and then suddenly a giant ball of energy surrounds the entire city of Atlantis, and it just sinks into the sea. Meanwhile, the rest of the city just crumbles, dies, falls into the ocean somehow. It's biblical times, people. That stuff can happen. That stuff doesn't happen in modern times, at least not yet, because then it will be broadcasted live on Instagram Live. Sorry. So now we fast forward in the movie to 1914. We find a young man named Milo Thatch, a linguist and cartographer living in Washington, D.C., and he's working for the Smithsonian. Milo is obsessed with finding the lost island of Atlantis, a dream that was shared by his late grandfather, Thaddeus Thatch. Milo is summoned to the home of a man named Preston B. Whitmore. He is escorted there by a woman named Helga Sinclair. Preston turns out to be an old friend of Milo's grandfather and reveals to Milo that he is financing an expedition to find Atlantis, due in part to Thaddeus and Preston having a bet that Thaddeus would find the legendary Shepherd's Journal, an ancient book that is supposedly the map and guide to find the underwater city of Atlantis. And Thaddeus found said journal off the coast of Iceland and not the coast of Ireland because, well, Irish people, I don't know what they would do with it. They wouldn't go exploring. What would they do? They would just drink. I'm sorry. I'm allowed to say that. I'm Irish. Okay, chill out. So he found a journal off the coast of Iceland, and and now Preston is financing this extraordinary expedition to Atlantis, which he wants Milo to join, since Milo is the only one on Earth who can currently read the Atlantean language and can understand the book. The leader of the expedition is Commander Rourke, a military leader, with his second in command being Helga Sinclair. They are joined by Demolition Man Vinny, Geologist Moliere, commonly known as Mole, Medical Officer Dr. Sweet, Mechanic Audrey, Radio Woman Dr. Packard, Chef Cookie, and a crew of hundreds of sailors and soldiers. They soon depart to the depths of the ocean in a very large, state-of-the-art submarine. And soon after their descent, as they approach what is supposedly the entrance to the highway of Atlantis, the submarine is attacked by a giant mechanical leviathan. For those of you who don't know, a leviathan is a mystical, biblical sea serpent that just, lives in the ocean and destroys things, and just, the classic sea monster kind of thing. But this leviathan, for some reason, it looks like a giant mechanical lobster. I mean, why not? Why not? The monster destroys the sub, killing most of the crew and much of the equipment. Those that survive the disaster, are able to reach the beginning of the highway to Atlantis, and they begin their journey. After many more setbacks, the remaining crew finally does reach the city of Atlantis. Surprisingly. Who would have guessed that? With a movie called Atlantis: The Lost Empire, who would have guessed that they actually would have found Atlantis? Imagine if the whole movie was them just looking for it, and then it just, after an hour and a half, they're like, dude, we can't find us, let's just go. Credits. Where they first encounter once they reach the city of Atlantis, they are somewhat greeted in a bit of a hostile way, but because they're outsiders, by a now grown Princess Kida, the little girl that we saw in the beginning of the movie, whose mother was taken up into the sky by a giant ball of light. Kind of like an alien. Maybe the aliens kidnapped Kida's mom. We will get back to that theory. After many, read off my notes here. The Atlantean warriors and Kida introduced Milo and the crew to her father, King Nidaka, the frail, aging king of Atlantis. The king does not trust the crew, but Kida is insistent that Milo can help them unlock the secrets of their society and the Atlantean crystal, due in part that he understands the Atlantean language. As Milo and Kida bond, and Milo begins to truly understand the connection that the crystal, aka also known as the heart of Atlantis, has to the Atlantean people, he also discovers that the expedition was not really one of, discovery and just in the name of archaeology. Nope. It's in the name of something else. Greed and wealth. Pursuit of greed and the pursuit of wealth. Definitely a tale almost as old. Probably just as old as time. The expedition was really just a ploy for Rourke to capture the crystal and take it back to the surface to sell it to the highest bidder. Most likely at this point it's 1914, so I'm assuming Russia. I'm assuming Russia is probably going to be the highest bidder. I mean, it would probably be England. They're also probably England at this point, but I'm assuming they're probably going to sell it to Russia. After fatally injuring the king, Rourke discovers the Atlantean crystal in a chamber below the throne room, where the crystal then suddenly merges with Kita in the same fashion as Kita's mom had done. As we discovered, this is what happened to Kita's mom in the beginning of the movie. Kita suddenly merges with the crystal, and the now crystallized version of Kita is taken by Rourke and the crew and soldiers to depart Atlantis. Before they depart, most of the main crew, Vinny, Mole, Dr. Sweet, Audrey, Packard, and Cookie all stay behind, all vote to stay behind with Milo and the Atlanteans, because they suddenly have a change of heart and realize, when Milo kind of reminds them that, like, if you take this crystal, you're literally going to be killing off an entire civilization. You guys are committing genocide, basically. They didn't say that word because I think that would have thrown some children off in the theaters hearing about genocide, but, I mean, that's literally kind of what they were doing. Like, Rourke really had no qualms of literally murdering off what I'm assuming is probably several hundred Atlanteans at this point. It's pretty fucked up, man. But, hey, he's after money. Money doesn't matter. Well, money matters. Feelings don't matter. When it comes to money, feelings don't matter. They all realize that, knowing he's the only hope to save Atlantis, Milo and the crew, Milo knows that he's the only hope to save Atlantis. In his dying words, the king tells Milo about the true connection to the crystal that the Atlantean people have to the crystal. That the crystal literally gives the Atlanteans life force. That it is because of the crystal that the Atlanteans have been able to survive for thousands and thousands of years, even before the destruction of Atlantis, when Atlantis used to be on the surface of the earth. The crystal is basically like the key to eternal life and youth, almost. I mean, well, not youth. I mean, clearly the king is old and dying, but like longevity. That's the word he uses. It's key to great longevity when it comes to age and health and youth and stuff like that. And the only way to now save the entire civilization of Atlantis is for Milo to somehow get Kita and the crystal back. Milo earlier was able to show Kita how to use the flying vehicles with the crystal, so he's able to commandeer all these old flying vehicles that the Atlanteans have never been able to use for many hundreds of years now, and they take off after Rourke, who is going to escape, try to escape through the what's it called? Shaft? Like the big shaft of a dormant volcano. Soon there is a aerial ace style battle between the Atlantean vehicles and Milo and the gang, and Rourke and his World War I style weapons, and and a big Zeppelin that is floating to the top, and all these little biplanes, which I'm pretty sure if you look in the movie, like, they're literally like laying down flying these biplanes, which honestly is a pretty sick idea. In the ensuing battle, Helga is betrayed by Rourke, who in turn ends up destroying Rourke's Zeppelin. Rourke and Milo try to do battle. Rourke ends up getting killed by Milo. Well, not by Milo, more by his head gets crushed and explodes in a big explosion in the ensuing battle on the Zeppelin. And the Zeppelin ends up falling down onto the ground and exploding, and this in turn wakes the volcano, which Molière, earlier in the film, said that the volcano was dormant and would only be awakened by an explosive force of great magnitude, like, bombs and explosions going off somewhere in the pit. That might do it. So it really waits a dormant volcano, which in turn sends a literal new tidal wave. A second tidal wave is about to hit Atlantis. This one, a tidal wave of lava. The lava starts about to descend upon the city, but Milo is able to return Kita and the crystal to the city, and Kita, the crystal through Kita, uses its powers to awaken the ancient stone guardians of Atlantis, who in turn create a giant energy dome over the city to protect it just in time from the lava flow. And soon Atlantis, returns to normal, and the water returns, and people in Atlantis have life again, and the movie is somewhat ending, I guess. This really isn't the best description, I'm just realizing, but hey, I'm trying, folks. This is my podcast. I'm trying. Kita then returns to normal, and the crystal remains above ground, giving new life to Atlantis. Milo chooses to stay down in Atlantis permanently to help rebuild the city, and also because him and Kita have fallen in love. Gross. The rest of the crew returns to the surface with individual crystals, including one from Mr. Whitmore, and millions of dollars worth of Atlantean treasure, but they all agree to keep it a secret that the Atlantean civilization is alive and well, so as to protect them from the further greed and evil of modern civilizations. Well, isn't that special? Isn't that nice? Isn't that great that they would do such a thing? I don't know. It's not a bad idea. This movie, truly, though, did mean a lot to me as a kid. I remember being so excited about this when I was a child. All the trailers for it, this came out in summer 2001. So trailers for this have been playing, for many months, basically all over Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. And so this movie, just to me, really captured my imagination. And I always wondered why that was as a child. I always wondered, what about this movie, this Disney movie really captured me? And I later learned that this was the first Disney animated feature film to be a science fiction movie. And then so that kind of made a lot more sense. Okay. As a child, basically, not like the full science fiction nerd where I'm obsessed, where I know everything, I haven't seen many great sci-fi series, but science fiction has always been the genre that has really captured my imagination the most, and it's always been that's that nerd in me that just wishes life could be like a science fiction movie almost. So there's many elements to science fiction within this movie. Plus, as I was talking to my therapist yesterday, there's many other things within this movie that really captured my imagination. Number one, the color palettes. For those of you who don't know, color palettes are basically literally all the different colors you see on the screen. In any movie, not just animated movies, any movie in general has many different color palettes. A lot of which come about during post-production, during editing, to breathe beautiful life into the movies and add beautiful colors to make it works of art. And there's just a lot of blues and turquoise, and that was always blues and turquoises have always been two of my absolute favorite colors. Green is probably my absolute favorite color, but blue and turquoise, it just has that cool vibe to it. In my weird, crazy, autistic mind, it has that late 90s kind of arcade vibe to it. I don't know why I said that. That's weird, but that's just what it seems to me. And the entire setting of the movie, also, it's 1914. At this, this was only 2 years. This movie is set only 2 years after the sinking of the Titanic, and at this point in 2001, I was already a very obsessed fan of the movie Titanic. That's taken over the world just a few years prior, and I loved that movie. It was fascinating. It was literally such a huge obsession in my childhood. And I read, I had a few different books about, Titanic and facts about the Titanic and learning about all the historical facts of it. And so if you would ask me, you could have asked me at this point in 2001, like, Brandon, what year did Titanic sink? I would have instantly told you 1912. So definitely when I saw the movie and I saw that it was set in 1914, that definitely captured me as well. Because probably in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's only like a few years after Titanic. So that definitely helped capture my mind as well. I guess, the mechanic, something that's always later fascinated me more, and I guess maybe partially grew from this movie, like the mechanical settings of it. I'll get into that a little bit. Like, the mechanical settings, just the machine, the technology, that old school kind of steampunk almost, kind of looking technology was always really fascinating to me. So there was just so many different elements that really captured my mind with this movie. So within research, there's a really great documentary, actually, that I watched on YouTube about the making of this movie. And it just goes through, like, the entire... It's like any making of movie feature that you find on, like, DVDs and stuff like that. Just going through, like, the entire process of how they made this movie, from, like, the development to, the premiere and stuff like that. So the development for this movie, Kirk Wise and Gary Truesdale. This is their third Disney feature animated movie. They had made 2 movies before. One called The Hunchback of Notre Dame, however you people want to call it. And then before that, they made a little musical film called Beauty and the Beast. So these two had a lot of success in the 90s with Disney. Beauty and the Beast still, I think, to this day, is probably one of Disney's greatest. And I'm talking about the original, the animated feature, not the one with Emma Watson, which is definitely by far the only really good Disney live action remake. And god damn it, they need to stop that. But that's another discussion for another time. But Kirk Wise and Gary Truesdale both had a lot of success with Hunchback and Beauty and the Beast. But they had the desire to do something different. They wanted to do a different kind of movie. Still in the spirit, still a Disney movie, but they didn't want to do another musical movie. They wanted something different. And in this feature, in the making of feature, they talk about how Disney had this wonderful history of making not only great musical movies but great action adventure movies. And the Kirk Wise and Gary Truesdale really wanted to do something like that. They wanted to make an animated adventure movie. And the idea of Atlantis just kind of grew out of that. There was a talk at one point, like, there was a lot of there was talk of even just doing, like, a general adaptation of, like, a Jules Verne novel, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or Journey to the Center of the Earth, or something like that. But just through thinking of these ideas, that it grew out, that the idea of the central setting of Atlantis came about, and that really fascinated the directors, and they thought, that could make a really good idea for a movie. So, what really helped them with choosing Atlantis is is the fact that there is no Atlantis in itself outside of this movie is really just a human mystery. It's a fascinating mystery. It's one that I would love, that would really be awesome if it was real. But humans don't even know if Atlantis is real. There's only like the ancient Greek mythical kind of writings of Atlantis. And there's no, other than that, it's just basically just hundreds and hundreds of pages of theories ranging on what Atlantis is, where it is, how it came to be, what happened to it, all this stuff. It's just one of the great mysteries of human civilization. This supposed ancient island or continent. Some people say it's an island, some people say it's an entire continent that could have connected Europe and Africa with North America and South America. But because of the fact that there is just no solid, real, true story of what Atlantis is, it allowed the filmmakers and the screenwriters to have free range to come up with to take all sorts of different ideas and make this really amazing original story of for this movie. The team did extensive research using the internet, this new fangled thing called the internet. I think this is definitely something that was going to be changing the game. Just being able to do basic internet research. God, like the internet back in the 90s fucking sucked. But the screenwriters and the filmmakers did extensive research for many years on all these different theories of Atlantis, looking at all sorts of stuff. Like the most common cited sources, I think, for Atlantis go back to, I believe it's Plato. If you go back to the ancient writings of Plato, and according to this documentary, they talk about how, when Plato talks about Atlantis, he talks about it because he heard it as a story from his father, who in turn heard it from a story from a friend. So, like, the story of Atlantis could literally just almost be like a drunken bar conversation. Be like, yeah, man, fuck, yo, did you hear about this ancient city that sunk into the ocean? Dude, it's crazy. That literally could be how it is. It could just been like an ancient, stupid bar conversation that people just thought was real. But the rangings, they looked at all these different theories, ranging from the writings of Plato to the works of this clairvoyant by name of Edgar Cayce, who was an American clairvoyant back in kind of around the setting of this movie, 1914, all that time. How do you get into that stuff? How are you, a clairvoyant? You want to talk to the supernatural, you want to, see dead people, all this stuff. How does that come about, pre-internet, back in this time? What happened in your life that you chose to go down that path? It's weird. What were people... God, people back then are nuts. But it's through the studies of Edgar Cayce, through this guy Edgar Cayce, that they were able to come up with the idea of the crystal, of the Atlantean crystal, being the heart and power source and life force of Atlantis. So it does help to, really do your research and come up with all of these different ideas. I think if you ask most people, what happened to Atlantis, if be you ever heard of the city of Atlantis, what happened to it? I think that the most common answer would probably just be a tsunami or the ocean sank it or whatever. It just sank into the ocean. That's basically what most people would say. That's really all I would know too. But there is so much research, so many different theories, of all these different islands that supposedly used to exist off the coast of ancient civilizations that could possibly be the city of Atlantis. You never know. Um, for the movie, there's even an Atlantean language created. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. They literally created an Atlantean language. Um, I look at here it is. Yes, they hired a man named Mark Okrand, who is an American linguist, and he was also well known as the creator of the Klingon language in Star Trek. This guy fully created, like you can look it up on the internet. There is a full Atlantean alphabet, and like phrase book maybe, or just like a different. There's a full Atlantean alphabet that you can write and communicate in an Atlantean language that was created specifically for this movie, which is just insane. How much time and work probably went into creating an entire fucking language, dude. Um, um, I'm just like considering like that's just so weird. It's cool, but it's weird. But it is cool. Um, the team did extensive research to design Atlantis for the movie because also when people think of Atlantis, they literally like the directors pointed out, a lot of people just think of like ancient Greece. Like you go to ancient Greece and you see like the ancient Greek structures and like the big crumbling I don't know what they're called, these architectural structures, but like they didn't want they didn't want Atlantis to look like that. They didn't want to look like they just talked about like the 50s fishbowl toy that you like put in your fishbowl and it's like, oh, your fish is swimming around the city of Atlantis or whatever. The team did extensive research for architectural inspiration, and they took some from all different cultures, including Mayan culture, ancient Mayan, Aztec, countries in Southeast Asia like Cambodia and India. They even took, and even ancient Egypt. They took all these different designs, all these different ancient designs of ancient civilizations and structures to create the look and feel of Atlantis. Another big thing about this movie is this is a time this movie was made is it was produced in the late 90s. It was pretty much all this whole movie it was released in 2001, but production of the movie began in the late 90s and went all the way up till like basically 2001 to premiere. So this is at a time when traditional hand-drawn cell animation is really fading away really quickly, and it's the now rise of CGI and computer graphics. At the time this movie used more computer-generated imagery and computer graphics than any other Disney animated feature beforehand. Slowly throughout the 90s with the Disney Renaissance, the animation slowly started to improve a lot. There was that legendary scene also done by Kirk Wise and Gary Drysdale in Beauty and the Beast, the legendary ballroom scene where it just, it looks, they had those beautiful 3D shots of like a camera dolly like swooping down and around Belle and the Beast while they're dancing. That was like an unheard of, technological breakthrough with animation. And these kind of things could definitely only be done by Disney at this point, because Disney is the one that had all the money and all the power to be able to do this. So, yeah, and then Yeah, that's all I really. That's all most I really learned, other than you know cast and stuff like that. But I don't really need to talk about that. This movie though, it was such a disappointment. There was plans. Apparently there were several plans, you know, based based on the hopeful success of this movie that there would have been Disney wanted to do like a TV series for the Disney Channel based on Atlantis, and they also wanted to build an Atlantis ride at Disney World. But because of the very underwhelming performance at the box office of this movie, all those plans were scrapped, and instead, all this movie got was a in my opinion, pretty crappy direct to video sequel 2 years later called Atlantis: Milo's Return. Um, I guess at the time, just kids, not enough children wanted to see like animated science fiction movies. I mean, this came out in 2001. You fast forward a year later from this, they released a movie called Treasure Planet, which is literally a fully science fiction version of the classic book Treasure Island. And that one bombed at the box office too. I remember, it just such a bum me out. Like, there's so much potential in this movie. You go back and watch this movie. This movie is so beautifully well done and animated and crafted that it just still boggles my mind. Like, how did more people not want to fucking watch Atlantis? But, you know, I still haven't seen every Disney animated movie. There's many of these new modern ones I have not seen. So everyone's got their own taste. Well, that's all I got to talk about today. Thank you for listening, folks. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. I hope after listening to this, you go back and watch Atlantis. It's on Disney Plus. Go back, enjoy it, appreciate it for what it is. Appreciate this movie because it's truly one of the best. Thank you, and have a great day, folks.